I'm really pleased to be joined by Steve Conley on my show today. So massive welcome to you, Steve, and thank you for joining me. Steve is an author of the book, Your Money or Your Life, and also the founder of the Academy of Life Planning, which I'm really interested in and I want to know a lot more about. And Steve has also had a very successful career in the city. And so Steve, for those who don't know you, can you tell us a little about you?
Yeah.
What you do, and obviously your story in terms of where you started to where you are now. So over to you, Steve.
Yeah. So up to the age of 50, I was working in the city, as you said, Tony. I was head of investments at HSBC. That's where I kind of ended up. So I was responsible for all of the wealth brands of HSBC in the United Kingdom. And I kind of had to launch big businesses every year, platforms, funds, multi-billion pound projects. And the biggest challenge for me was like the financial planning problem in the UK market and globally actually, which is the advice gap. And I was trying to figure out I thought if I could come up with an answer with how to kind of plug the advice gap, then that would be a great development for the market. And I kind of did some research and I found out what the problem was. And the problem was trust. It wasn't about professionalism. It wasn't about products. It was simply came down to the banks, the financial services industry is the least trusted of all industries globally, according to Edelman Trust.
Do you still think that is the case?
Yeah, they do a survey every year after year. It's been improving since the surveys began in 2012, 2011, 2012, which is when I kind of found out. The survey's been repeated every year and the trust levels have been improving, which is the good news. The bad news, it's still worse than any other industry.
Yeah, okay, that's quite alarming, being in that industry. So.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know, it's an industry where actually trust matters most. You know,
absolutely.
You promise to pay the bearer on demand about the money, and if they're not going to pay you when you demand it, then obviously the process of trust breaks down. The industry hasn't done itself any favours. There's been a lot of bad apples in the market, and forever we're seeing something in the press. So I kind of wanted to find out the most trusted model in the world. Where was it? And I did find it, and I tried to introduce it to the banks, and they weren't interested. That was back in 2011, 2012. So it's almost 10 years ago now.
Why weren't they interested, Steve?
It's about profit and shareholders. So the banks put the interest of shareholders before they do their customers, and as many large institutions do, although they say they don't, they actually do in practice. And they found that the better return on investment on shareholders' funds could be obtained from lending. So giving people credit cards, giving people credit card, you pay 26% interest on, they're getting 26% return on equity if they put the marketing budgets on that, whereas savings or investments are getting nothing on savings. Very, very thin margins. And on wealth, they said was a zero-sum game because they paid out in fines, redress payments, having to run compensation administration practices to give people back money from mis-selling scandals. It proved a zero-sum game. Well, so the banks decided back in 2012, when they were banning commission under the Retail Distribution Review, that they would exit the market. So bank assurance sort of disappeared overnight. There was 10,000 advisors.
I remember that well. So
I had this model for the trusted advisor, which I piloted at the bank. I've been working with a guy called George Kinder. George is the grandfather of life planning.
True.
So what I did is I found that the most trusted advice model globally was the life planning model, where the boutique firms in the UK and abroad were planning the client before planning the money. They were treating the client as the customer, not the money. They were acting on behalf of the client, working out what the client wanted to do with their life, rather working to the agenda of the product providers, which is the traditional model.
Yeah.
So we piloted it. I proved something called the customer relationship dividend, and this is where with HSBC, before the pilot, they clients were only investing £1 in every 8 with the bank. They put the other 7 elsewhere because they didn't trust the bank to run the money. Client meetings, the advisors, financial planning managers were having to have 4 meetings before they'd get a client and see 4 people. So the conversion rates were 25%. But what happened after the pilot, the customers that went in City branch in London and Canary Wharf branch who sat with the pilot advisors, they were delighted, said it was the best financial conversation they'd had in 25 years. They were prepared to trust all their money, the bank to run all their money, because they felt that the advisor was someone they could trust. So it became £8 in 8 instead of 1. And then the customer would go out and tell their friends, neighbours, about this service. And the next thing you know, it sat in front of you was the friend or neighbour. And they were ready to sign up before you'd even begun because they wanted the planning service. So it's a tremendous success. So George and I were really excited. We thought, this is going to take off. But then the retail distribution review, they said, we've decided to spend our marketing budgets on lending. And we're going to sack all the advisors. So that was the end of it. And that I left in disgust.
It seems like an opportunity really missed by the banks. Because no doubt if HSBC would have taken this on board, then other banks would have done the same. So it seems that a real shame that they didn't adopt this.
So the HSBC has 500 million customers globally. So I was planning to roll it out to 500 million people. Had the pilot approved. So it just wasn't going to be. Well,
I think, as you know, I used to work for HSBC. I left before 2012. So, I know a little bit about HSBC as well. So it's, I had high esteem, or they held HSBC in high esteem. So it is a shame. So.
Yeah, and it wasn't just HSBC; it was all the banks.
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I was chairman of the British Bankers Association's Bank Assurance Steering Group, so I was the lead in the discussions with the regulator leading up to RDR. I kind of chaired the committee, representing banks, and I knew that Lloyds, Barclays, Santander, everyone had the same intention. Everyone laid off their financial advisors.
Yeah, they did.
There's no money.
Yeah, a lot of them joined the IFA ranks.
So then I joined the real world of being self-employed, running my own business, and it was a steep learning curve. Set up initially as a regulated firm, tried to kind of do the regulated, trusted advisor model, but I found the barriers to entry very high and very difficult to make it on your own as a small boutique firm. I was paying everyone else before I paid myself, and I was paying myself very little. And 2 years into it, my savings had pretty much diminished. And I thought, this can't be right. Although I had 24 happy clients, I couldn't really make it work. The only really way you can make it work these days, I think, is if you join a big firm. But then the big firms are doing the traditional product sales transactional model, and we're interested in planning the client. You see, it's kind of a bit airy-fairy, not down to it. But now, it's funny how things over the last 10 years have emerged, because now the transactional type firms are under pressure, cost-wise. Even the successful firms, they're finding, particularly with the COVID-19, new business income has dropped dramatically, and the regulator is pointing at their ongoing income and saying, we want to make a few changes regarding that. So that's under threat.
I know that from personal experience. So it's and it's becoming more and more difficult, I think, every day. And that, with regards to regulation and the FCA and their requirements, then it does make being in business as a traditional financial advisor much more difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I found that I was doing the trusted financial planning model, the actual need to do a transaction started to go down. So when I sat down and started planning the client instead of planning the product, the outcome for the client was often a kind of mini business plan. I used to do business plans in the bank, building these massive businesses. And I kind of sat down with the clients and I worked out that the best way to kind of improve their finances is put in a little 3-year or 5-year business plan for them, the business of you, and show them how they could create wealth. Because I found that there's actually no products that can create wealth. The products actually manage wealth or run your wealth, preserve your wealth. You don't actually create it.
There's a big distinction between the two.
So it's the client that creates the wealth. So they need the plan, a little business plan for them to work out, if you want to overcome your shortfalls on your cash flow forecast, then the best way to do that is to get an extra client a month, or to get promotion, or or change your hours, or or do something as a sideline. So it's all these ideas, and I was putting in place these mini plans for the clients and not recommending products. And I kind of scratching my head and thinking, well, if I'm struggling as a business to make it work, paying out my paying the network, paying the FCA, paying my PII, professional indemnity insurance, I was paying out all this money and I was getting nothing for myself. And all that cost was actually to do with transactions and the planning, where I was kind of planning the client. That none of the costs related to that, but that was where all the value was for that client. Mm-hmm. So I kind of evolved the model, and the pure financial planning model, if you just focus on the client, I mean, these days investment returns are a commodity. You can achieve them, and I'm kind of seeing increasing awareness in the general public that you can actually do as well, if not better, after charges, with the doing a simple, say, passive retail multi-asset fund on the platform. You're going to do that, save yourself up to 1% a year on charges, and you can run yourself. You set it up. You don't have to continually watch it. You just buy it and hold it and run it for 50 years. And then you can just focus on the financial planning, which is retirement planning, the tax planning, all the things that a skilled and qualified financial planner can really add value for the client.
Yeah.
And that's where the real value is in financial planning, pure financial planning.
I think a lot of advisors have recognized that, and I think there is a gradual change towards that. But I think if you are going down the road as an advisor, a traditional advisor, certainly on the transactional sort of side, or purely focusing on obtaining better returns for the client, then you are going to come unstuck. Because obviously, we have these types of events which have happened recently, and which is out of your control. And as a result of that, obviously, performance goes out the window. So it's all about the added value that you add to a client in whatever format that you're advising these people on. But I totally agree is that I think there's much more need to provide added value to clients so they can... I mean, I like to be in a situation where you're educating people as much as you can, so they are making their own choices. And yes, if they can do it themselves, then why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And there is an argument for the transactional model still. So some clients appreciate the research and product selection, but the outcome is not going to be a better return than you can get on the market. It's not going to be a market-beating return. It might be a better features on the products as services. And it's also the time it takes to do all that and implement something. I kind of understand where high net worth clients, they particularly want to pay someone else to do all that for them rather than do it themselves. So there's still a kind of need for that. But if your client can accept that, if they're prepared to take the 10 minutes to open up a platform account and set something up, an educated client, because you, as a pure financial planner, you educate your clients, as you say, so they're making informed decisions, and they've got the pros and cons and understand everything. And the focus then is on the client's plan rather than the money, the product, and that sort of thing. So I found that I kind of developed, I became a master life planner with the Kinder Institute of Life Planning, which heavily invested in myself. I do believe that best investment you can make is in yourself.
Yeah, totally agree.
I became Master Life Planner, and I trained as an author, wrote a book, published a book. I was trained as a professional speaker, and elite member of the Professional Speakers Academy. So it all goes together in providing something that I now share with the Academy members, which is a blueprint really to doing pure financial planning in a way that I believe is scalable, because with the transactional, the regulated financial planning, it's a one-to-one business. So you have to make a personal recommendation. You need the circumstances of the client. Needs to be suitable, and that's a one-to-one business. And you can probably, I think the average, according to a New Model Advisor, the average advisor in the UK has 94 clients. And that's just about the limit, I think. I know we've probably got more than that.
Well, I wouldn't disagree with that. I think, over the years, I've had, in my various guises and different roles with different organizations, and I think the most I've ever had is 200, but I did have a lot of support. So, depends on the level of support. But I think it's recognized that around about 100 active clients is thereabouts in terms of what an advisor can really look after well, and do those clients or serve those clients well. So I agree with you.
So your time's limited, so therefore your business is limited, and it becomes what I call a lifestyle business, where you're exchanging your time for money. And the beauty about the non-intermediating financial planning, where you take product out, is you don't need the personal circumstances. It's all general advice and financial education, which you can deliver to a group of people. And then you can move your model from a one-to-one basis to a one-to-many basis. And you can start running web classes and doing larger groups. And then you can eventually, write a book or produce an ebook or produce a course yourself. And then people could actually download that or buy the book without even needing to see you. And it becomes what I call this non-to-many business. Now, the beauty about that is you've moved your lifestyle business to an equity-based business, and it becomes more valuable as an asset, your business does, because it's not dependent on you being sat there. And the valuation of the business goes up, multiple times revenue. It's now worth not 1 time revenue, it can be worth 5 times revenue. So the valuation of the business goes up. But the other interesting thing, it creates what we call this nocturnal income for you as an advisor. Because if people are buying your books and buying your courses while you're sleeping, that's passive income coming into you as a business owner. And then that could actually solve your long-term shortfall in, say, your retirement. Because if you get enough recurring income coming into the business from that non-to-many type activity, you could retire. It's what I don't call it retirement, because you're still doing stuff that you love, but you got your time back to do all the things you love in life. Your life plan, you can start living your life plan and having this money coming in. And so that's the service for the advisor, and the advisor delivers that same service to their client. So the client has a mini business plan of them. The client goes from a one-to-one lifestyle business to having an equity-based business. And the client starts to kind of get their time back and starts to have a better life plan and starts to have wealth, not just in their bank account, but in every area of their life. So that's the model. It works for the client and it works for the advisor who services the client.
It sounds very much like walk the walk. So as an advisor, then if you can embrace this for yourself, then once you've done that, you can believe in everything that you've learned, and you can obviously then share that with your own clients and new clients. I think what it also does as well is that it takes away the need from a traditional advisor, where from a commercial point of view, people need to have assets, we say, of a certain level to make it commercial for an advisor to act for these clients. I think in terms of the life planning model, that isn't necessarily the case. Although in some cases, I suppose it can be even more affluent people, because they have a tendency to want to do things themselves anyway, but with a bit of guidance.
Yeah.
So I think, I
yeah,
definitely think there's a big market for this, and it could be a wider spectrum to what a traditional advisor is now currently doing.
Yeah. So I think for traditional financial planning, the target client is a high net worth client. So typically £100,000 of investable assets or more. Some would put the threshold up to 250. So that's about 95% to 99% of the population excluded from that model.
Yeah.
Now, with this contemporary financial planning model, you target, because you've got wealth creation in your kit bag. So you can actually go and see a client who hasn't got £100,000 and you can give them £100,000 through a plan, through a good financial plan. And that's the business of you. And I've done this a couple of times. I've got a couple of examples of doing this.
It'd be great if you could share those with us. So
So one was, so these are on my website, but I'll just give you an example. So one was a company that I helped. A guy called Keith was setting up a pension company for auto enrolment, and he wanted someone who knew what kind of the industry. Keith had another job. He had his own SJP business, but he wanted to set up an auto enrolment business on the side with another business part, but they didn't want to work in the business. So they asked me if I would do that, and did that. It's basically this business plan of you. I said, well, what's the business plan? Because that's what the pure financial planner brings to the table, the ability to plan. And put in place a plan. And what it was one of these none-to-many kind of business model is what I created, a scalable model. Instead of doing a lifestyle model for auto enrolment, I did a equity-based model for auto enrolment, which means that the system did it all for you. And as a result of that, the people who were doing lifestyle auto enrolment, they were charging a couple of grand to set up an auto enrolment scheme for their customers. But with my system, it was £19 a month.
Really?
So,
all right.
So the business was a startup, and in 3 years, there were 64,000 other companies trying to be auto enrolment experts. Things.
I know. I was part of one of them.
By the end of it, I think it was about a handful. But I was Workplace Ventures Direct was the company, and we grew it to market leader. It was the market leader. It's number one. It was in 3 years, it became a seven-figure from zero to it was worth seven figures for the shareholders of the business. So it was shortlisted finalist for Yorkshire Business Masters Awards for the services it did for
very
the market.
Successful then. So.
Yeah, and it had the prominent stand at Accountex in London, so it was massive. It suddenly went massive. So that was that example. It was a good testimonial from Keith on the website. At the same time, just to show that I wasn't kind of doing that full time, I was agreed to be a non-executive director for another client called Marilyn. Marilyn was setting up a charity to help not in education employment teams in the northwest, Wigan, to get them into employment in manufacturing and industry through motor racing, interest in motor racing. So we kind of got them building motor racing karts. I got some ex-soldiers involved, and who were showing the kids how to make things. We got 3D printing the karts and things. It's all science and technology. But she needed a business plan, and she needed help filling in funding applications and putting the case together. So it's the mini business of you again comes into the finance plan, the game plan, which is part of the game plan. Anyway, this week, the news was that they've been offered funding by Manchester local authority of £4 million. So they've just won a contract for £4 million to build.
I did see a headline on that, so that did grab my attention. So I knew it was linked to obviously what you had helped them with earlier. So I can't think of a better example of how life planning, the way that you do things, actually works.
Yeah, it's just so it's there's no that was less than 5 years, so I can't think of an investment. We don't even recommend an investment product where it's less than 5 years. You've got nothing to offer in your kit bag as a traditional financial advisor to help a client create £4 million in wealth in a 5-year period. But as a a pure financial planner, you can. It's the business plan of you.
Yeah.
It's about how many clients do we need, how many applications do we need to fill in for funding, how can we improve the application. It's working as a personal business coach with your client at the execution stage of the game plan. So basically the process that I use with those clients and use with all the clients I systemized, and I've learned, I thought, well, I want to share this. I like pure financial planning, everyone to be doing it. Now, the other life planning gurus in the market, they kind of are very precious about their material, and that they kind of can train you up on it, but then they want to license it. If you kind of use it as a business, they want 50% of your profit and all that sort of thing. So
more like a franchise, is it?
Yeah, so I wanted an open source model. I want to say, no, I actually want everyone. I want the 500 million people that I was aiming to be life planned, and the only way I'm going to do that is have an open source model and just make it available to the membership of the academy, show them how to do it, give them all my documentation, and say, you repurpose it for your own business, tweak it, make it your own, add to it your skills and knowledge to make it uniquely yours, and start helping people to create wealth. Because running your own, running money is not something where value is added by the industry. There's something else as well that's more fundamental. That is that I think the financial industry, the way it's been set up for centuries, is that during your working life, the idea is you hand over your money to the industry, and they run the money, taking their cut. Take a big cut, and so often a hidden cut. But they're probably taking more of the return than you are as a client, and then they eventually at the end of your life give you the money back. So we're kind of on this, encouraging the economy to kind of work on this treadmill of working existence for the best part of 50 years on the bet we can buy ourselves happiness and freedom in the last 16 years of our life. And we have this process of doing jobs that we're not very happy with, getting pay rises that barely keep pace with inflation, where the bosses are getting, super profits on the business. And the idea is, so the boss runs a business plan for themselves and then employs people and gives them cost of living increases. And that's kind of the treadmill for the best part of 50 years. And you're hoping you can buy this freedom and happiness. But as we said before, only 95% of people don't actually have more than £100,000 at the end of that process. And they're not going to buy themselves much of a freedom and happiness in the last 16 years of life with that. So it's not working. And this process is you kind of hand over your money while you're on this treadmill, and where you might not be happy on this bet. So that's kind of the process. But this process where you create wealth as a planner, you kind of say, well, actually, what would be a happy life? And let's do that in the next 3 years. Let's give you happy. Let's create some wealth. And so what I found was, so with the business of you, the plan for the client to actually create, from their interests and hobby, their talents and values, a sideline in the business. They're then the boss of themselves, and they create this income and an asset that goes into the lifetime cash flow that makes good the shortfalls. And if you can move it from a lifestyle business to an equity-based business, it also fixes the retirement shortfall. And now you're not handing over any money. In fact, you are the business that you're investing in, and the best investment, as I said, you can make is in yourself, and that's the return you can get from that investment is far greater than if you hand over your money to other people for them to do that and to take their share, which you might not see a lot of the profit on. So I think this is a kind of solution to the advice gap that we talked about. Because it's non-regulated, the costs are a lot lower, which means you don't have to charge as much to get the same margins as an advisor. So we can start serving people who have less than 100,000 and helping them to create 100,000 or more in the process. So I think it's a great social benefit from pure financial planning.
Well, I think it's certainly going to help many more people than traditional financial planning. I don't think there's any question about that. I think that obviously the world that we live in is so uncertain as well, is that you need to have what I would suggest is more than one income stream as well. whether you as a client or as a planner, because there are occasions, and we all go through different cycles where one is more dominant than the other.
Yeah.
And so if you want to create whether it's a life for yourself or a better life for your clients, then I think whether it's a hybrid between the two or whether it's one or the other, then time will tell. But I certainly see the life planning space gathering momentum, and I think there's a big shift already from pure or traditional financial planning across to life planning. And indeed, I think there's a big shift between people just doing life planning and not doing traditional financial planning. And I think for a lot of people coming out of maybe the end of their financial planning career, it's something that perhaps they move into naturally and leave the traditional financial planning space.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about diversification, like you said. And it's like we're becoming portfolio entrepreneurs, where we have a day job and sideline and a couple of, and it's good because we could see through COVID-19 that your business can dry up, but if you've got a sideline, so the good thing about the pure financial planning, because you don't need wet signatures, you can do it online. So you can do your Zoom meetings and you don't need to get signatures from your clients.
So is this, I mean, I take it then, one of the big attractions for this is everything is online. You don't need to have face-to-face meetings with people. Yeah. So does that mean then you're not limited just to even the UK? It could be a global entity as well?
That's right. So a lot of my clients, as a pure financial planner, when they're I've had client meetings in Cape Verde, got a client in California, I had one in Israel last year. So my clientele are all over the world. They tend to be English speaking, but the Academy is a network of advisors, and those advisors around the world too. So I've got Sam in Hong Kong, I've got John in Sweden, I think Max is Germany. So I have these guys everywhere around the world who tend to be international financial planners, expat community type thing, but not always. But yeah, I've got interest in South Africa, interest in America and Australia. So so it's pure. There's no borders when it's pure financial planning because it's not a regulated activity, not subject to. So you could do it from anywhere. So I have pictures on the website, people sat in deck chairs, with their laptop, being a financial planner or being the client, from there, because you can really literally all you need is a laptop and Wi-Fi.
Yeah, but the other advantage of that is it's because there's no regulated product at the end of it. It doesn't matter in what country you're in, because you are not providing advice on that area, because that's where the difficulty is for traditional financial planners. If you're not an expert, obviously, in different territories, then you can't advise on those. But with this life planning approach, then the difference is that you're doing the life planning, but you're not doing the investments. They're doing that themselves. Yeah,
that's right. So, I think it's a better model for the future. And like I say, if it's not your main business, certainly consider it as a part of your portfolio to do something. It's also probably the most enjoyable part of the job.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I find filling in returns for the FCA or.
I think, I mean, I've been doing this. I've been a financial advisor for 30 plus years. I'm counting. But the reason why I keep doing it is because of the clients. I love the interaction with the clients. The clients themselves, because you have a long-term relationship with clients, then you do get quite close to them. So you share in their challenges, obviously their successes, sadness, happiness, all those things. So, but I can't see why you can't have that same relationship or feeling with people if you do it via life planning situation. So on that subject, or on that to the point, Do you see this as life planning as something where you have long-term relationships with people, similar to a traditional advisor, or is this a sort of a more short-term project type based scenario?
Yeah, so it's a kind of combination. So it tends to be, the game plan is a cycle. So it's a cycle of planning, typically around 3 months. That you basically put a plan in place for the client to have their dream life and enjoy it, wealth in every area of their life. So they have a plan. At that point, then you're at a point of being a personal coach or a business coach. So with the 2 cases I gave you, I was involved with those companies. Workplace Pensions Direct was actually a 3-year contract. I was a non-exec director at the end. And again, with the Blair project, it was a 5-year, I was a non-exec director. So it's a 5-year contract. So it's ongoing with both of those. I mean, if I'm trying to create £1 million plus time wealth, you kind of need to be there on a pretty ongoing basis. But for most clients, it's typically a 3-month cycle. And then they come back to you when they want you to repeat the cycle. So with Emma, she was the accountant in London who didn't enjoy a 9 to 5, was pretty miserable. And she ended up, after the plan, of moving to California and setting up as a holistic accountant in California, in Los Angeles. She's delighted, but then she came back to me again because she met somebody and wanted to create a life where the 2 lives are mapped together, intertwined, a common future. So she came back to me again, and we did the planning again with her husband to be included in the planning process. So it was then repeated. So I guess it depends on the kind of nature. Normally, it's you might have achieved something and then want to come back to it. There's another lady called Kay who I've helped set up a business. She was a nurse, worked for the NHS. I think it was admin actually at the side. But she had a sideline business which was to create a food tour. She ran food tours in some cities where you kind of go around, you meet together and you go around restaurants and things. But I helped her branch out and diversify, which has been pretty good for the COVID-19 thing, because she's now a teacher for other women who want to set up food tours in other cities. So she's got a program because she used to be a teacher before she joined the NHS. So she's using all the skills and creating that. And now she's come back to me again and says, actually, I want to be a life planner because I want to teach these women, not just who want to set up food tours, but I want to show women who want to set up anything, how to do that as a sideline and do what I've done and become, she's a full-time. She gave up within 6 months. She'd given up a job at the NHS and was doing it full-time. And she's now joined the academy as a life planner. And she's doing that as well as her training ladies to be food tour managers.
So to become a life planner, based on what you've just said, is that you don't necessarily have to be a financial advisor to be able to do this. You can do this from any walks of life, as long as you've got the sort of I suppose the basic skills and the willingness to learn and do this. Then anybody can do it.
Yeah, the level of skill depends on your market, your target audience. So if you're going to serve the community that the regulated financial advisors serve, which is the top 5%, then you probably need to be a skilled planner.
Yeah.
But if you're going to help ladies who kind of don't like their day job as a teacher or at NHS, and Kay's qualification, she said to me, is that she's a daughter of a Yorkshire banker. I thought it was pretty good
combination.
Yeah. I thought it was a good combination. So, but she's just got to show them how to budget, how to make the money go further, how to overcome budgetary obstacles when you're moving from employed to the real world, as I call it. And do all the lessons that she's learned, because at that level, that's all that you need. 60% of the population have less than £5,000 in savings. Many of them are heavily in debt. I think the average debt is now 50% of annual pay. That's unsecured debt, and you've got your mortgage on top of that. And it's really managing that situation where the traditional financial planner is probably not as well equipped as somebody who's the daughter of a Yorkshire banker might be, but that's her niche. And so it's horses for courses. Top end, yeah, we have many chartered and certified financial planners, and at the kind of less affluent end, then just being able to have good housekeeping financially. That's good qualification for that end. And at the end of the day, we're planning the client rather than the money, and the money is kind of incidental. So.
I think one of the things that I know is included in this is cash flow planning as well.
Yes.
So that's a key component part of this life planning. So can you tell me a little bit more, or for the audience's purposes, more about the cash planning aspect of it, and just to provide us with a picture, I suppose, in terms of how that works.
It does. Right. Okay. So the game plan is first of all we have to plan the client, which is goals and action. So an action plan is like a project plan. Yeah. So the goal is where you create goals in every area of the client's life. So it's in their mind, in their body, in their heart and spirit, kind of every aspect, and the bank account. And action plan is where we do a project plan for the client. And that's then with the client has got a life plan. Now then you need to look at the money, and you need to create the financial architecture necessary to support the life plan. And that's where the lifetime cash flow forecasting tools come in, because basically that looks at your lifetime cash flow.
Yeah.
The process means the game plan is where you look at the money, and you look at not just wealth management, but wealth creation strategies, the business of you, the sideline business plan, put that in the cash flow, and that makes good shortfalls. I call that process, about how you do that, the financial freedom forecasting, because what you're doing is you're helping people escape the treadmill of work existence, or to give up, or to diversify away from the regulated practice because it's a risk by the regulator, and try and free up people. And so we can model all of that in the financial freedom forecaster using lifetime cash flow tools.
Okay.
And then that outputs of that, pictures of the cash flow, of income, of expenses, of the net worth of the client, can be dropped into a report to explain the story about this is where you are. And then we do what if scenarios, where we say, with the business plan of view, if you got one customer a week doing your
whatever it might be,
food tours or whatever it is, then this is, we put that in the model and look, all the red has gone there, your shortfalls have gone. So we then make that into a plan. We say, if you left your day job, then we have to take the salary out.
Yeah.
But then you've got access to your pension at 55, you could perhaps take some from that, and we kind of
might need advice for that, though, Steve. So.
Yeah, well, you could tell people generic advice about what the pros and cons are of various actions, because often I get asked, isn't that regulated advice? And the regulated advice is if you're talk about specific product, giving specific advice relevant for that individual to a specific product. If you educate them, sometimes someone comes to me with a product and said, "What's this? Tell me explain this to me."
Yeah.
And you can do that. You say, that's, this is a guaranteed annuity rate, this is market value adjustment and all this sort of thing. And if you wanted to shift that, you'd have to go and see a regulated advisor because it has protected benefits.
Yeah.
The cost of a regulated advisor might be, give them an idea, but it's going to vary from one advisor to another. So if you want to go down that route, you see a transactional, traditional advisor, So that sometimes is the case. I have a client called Ian, who's actually a chief executive of a bank.
A large bank, yes.
A large bank,
yes.
I thought I burnt my bridges with the directors of the large bank 10 years ago, but no, because I stuck to my guns, they trust me and they come to me and want my advice. So we've done a life plan for Ian and his wife, and it involves him leaving the bank. He did have an option to stay on another 5 years and do some voluntary work in the Far East, building schools with his wife, so that's what he wants to do. He's an actuary. He said, I've got this pension pot and I want a defined benefit pension scheme. I want to shift it, look at shifting it because I want the flexibility. he understood that and said, well, the only one way to do that is go and see a regulated advisor. So I made an introduction to a regulated advisor for that client, and he says he knows how to run his own money, but they won't let him do that for 12 months. They want to run it for him for at least 12 months. But it's going to cost him 10 grand to do the analysis, and he's going to be with them for 12 months. But it's that's the way I deal with it, and that does come up, the need for transactional work from time to time. But in terms of his cash flow forecasts and everything, his life plan, that's all done by me. And he's paid me for that. So yeah, that's the way you work. Some other clients might use discretionary managers, and so the lady I was talking to this week, she's got she is actually the granddaughter of the person that set up the stockbroker about many years ago, and so there's some trust work that I did when I was a regulated advisor for her, that she wanted me to help her, because it's now beyond the 7 years and she wants to kind of give the money to the beneficiaries. And so I could talk generically about that, pros and cons. It's a bit like when you're answering an exam question and they're asking you about trust, explain the different trust and taxation treatment, and if people assign policies or exit trusts, what the pros and cons are from tax perspective. So you could do all of that as a pure financial planner, but what you don't do is make product-specific recommendations to either invest in or divest from an investment, a regulated investment product. So
yeah, I think this part of it is quite a hot topic at the moment. It's when does life planning become regulated advice, etc. So it's there is a divide by there, and I think that you've got to separate the two of them.
Yeah, so it's good to have support in making those decisions. So I had one member say to me that they were doing a pension lifetime allowance. There was a lifetime allowance tax liability, and they're wondering which pension pot to take it from.
Okay.
And they didn't know that was a regulated activity. So
right. Okay.
I say, if you tell them which pot to take it from, you kind of, because they were wondering, if you make a mistake, then aren't you covered on the professional indemnity insurance? And I said to them, well, actually, what you're doing is regulated activity, and it should be covered by professional indemnity insurance. Yeah. So so it's not clear cut, and it does help to have. This is what I thought was missing in the industry was a network support mechanism for people who are in this space working in pure financial planning.
So is that one of the, I think that's one of the differences with your academy, is where people are part of other life planning groups. The ongoing support is not as great as what you were offering with your academy. Yeah,
that's right. I think with the other academies, they tend to be training companies and trainers. They'll do a 10-week program, and then you kind of come out the door and not knowing who to go back to. I know that some of them are starting to add on the ongoing piece. Some of the big organisations don't really have anything on an ongoing basis. Some of the big gurus in the marketplace tend to have this non-to-many business model where you pay $45 a month, and you can download ebooks and courses to view, but you're not actually getting access to a person.
Yeah.
So if you've got specific problems, so you want to know, is this regulated or not? Then you haven't got someone to talk to. So I wanted to provide that support like you would get from a network. One of the things I used to do before I was head of investments in the bank, is I used to run the 4th largest IFA network in the UK, which is Barclay Independent Advisors in Coventry. Had 1,200 advisors, so I was the sole director of that for a period before setting out to Tenet Group. So I know what it's like to kind of run a network. I thought, well, let's combine that skill with life planning, and so provide the network support as well as the planning support. And that's why I say to the members of the academy, I say, use your skills. There's a reason why you did that for 6 months or did that. because you need that skill in what you're doing, and you need to combine. If you're great with people and great with numbers, you need to be a people person working with numbers. And that's the idea of when you're planning your client, for the planners to do with their clients. If they're great at teaching and great at food, they're a foodie, perhaps they should teach people about food, So it's the idea, because that makes you unique, and it's not a problem with competition. You really stand out. That's what makes you succeed. The way I say it is, we all have this God-given gift, and our purpose in life is to use it in the service of others. And often this planning process is about revealing what that gift is and what that life purpose is, and doing it as commercially, because that way you're going to be more successful in life and create wealth in your life, rather than being on the treadmill for the best part of 50 years taking this bet. So that's the...
It sounds great. I think it sounds like, you were clearly enjoying it.
Yeah.
Where do you either see or hope to see where your academy is going?
Yeah, I've got to do what I preach in terms of make it a legacy. So a lasting legacy that's bigger than me, that's lasting beyond when I've gone. Because the journey is in life, the financial planning journey it begins in suffering. We're kind of out of our depth in debt. We were 2 paychecks away from poverty. That's the suffering. The first part that the pure financial planner does is help people into wisdom through the financial education. So you're delivering financial education, so they now see the error of their ways. And the next journey is to financial security. So you got the likes of Kay working at that end about budgets and bank accounts and stuff, to get them sort of financially secure, and they're not, you've got the more than 2 paychecks from poverty. But this is where then the traditional financial planner comes in, is helping them from security to freedom, is the next journey.
Mm-hmm.
And but when they've attained freedom, often in retirement for many, there is another journey, which is from the freedom to the legacy, to creating something that's bigger than yourself, that's going to be here long after you're gone, be remembered by. And that's the kind of part of the journey where I'm on at the moment, moving there. But it's like based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is you have the physiological needs at the bottom. You've got to have a roof over your head, food on your plate, and that sort of thing. But then there's security needs, where you need security for you and your family. And then there's relationship needs, where you start to relate, which is the area of the heart. And then there's a self-esteem needs, where it becomes intellect and about what you can achieve. And then it used to be the Maslow's hierarchy when it came out, self-actualization, and that's being the best you could be. It was the top of the pyramid. But then in his last year before he died, Maslow found self-transcendence, which was the legacy, the need to do something bigger than yourself and to help other people was actually the next need. And that's really the legacy. So that, for me, the academy, I've got to work on taking myself out of it eventually, so that it continues as a business to serve planners well into the future, and clients, well into the future, long after I'm gone.
I think that's a challenge most business people have, but I think that the structure that you are forming is going to make that certainly possible, and many other people are going to benefit from that as well. So there's a question, we're coming towards the end now, but there's a question I like to ask all of my guests, and because it's TT Wealth, so it's the question I've got is, what does wealth mean to you?
Okay, I think if you look at the original definition of wealth, it's not about what you have in your bank account. Right. It's abundance in every area of your life. So some people, there's sayings that some people are so poor, all they have is money. So people are kind of rich in the heart, but not in the bank account. So you have these contrasts of wealth. So I think it's abundance in every area of your life is wealth in a balanced way. So I call that physically, and so that'll be well-being. Yeah, it's probably well-being is good. So you have physical well-being, you have mental well-being, you have emotional well-being, spiritual well-being, financial well-being. So it's wealth. Wealth for me is a wealth in every area of your life. If you are deficient in one of those areas, then you are suffering as a result of that. So,
but I also know that's very much at the center of your life planning. Academy is to examine all aspects and trying to create that balance, so that you have, as you say, wealth in every area, and you, as a result of that, then you have and live a happy life. That's right.
So, so the book that you referred to at the beginning, Your Money or Your Life, is about the difficult choices people have to make.
Yeah.
But then it's unmasked the highway robbers, which is the kind of the banks and things, that what they're doing. But enjoy wealth in every area of your life, and that's the game plan, delivering that as a way to overcome this trap that we have, the treadmill trap, and give freedom, deliver empowerment back to the member of the public through pure financial planning. That's because there's no product involved, there's no conflict of interest, there's no conflict of remuneration. The interest of the planner is aligned with the interest of the client. The planner is acting as an agent of the client, not the product provider. So, this, I think, is the way to help individuals achieve wealth in every area of their life. And it's the vocation of a pure financial planner to facilitate that.
Well, it sounds to me that everybody needs a life plan.
Yeah, it does.
Okay, so we're coming to an end now. So for anybody who wants to find out more about you, or in particular the Academy of Life Planning, either as a client or as an actual life planner itself, so where would they find you?
Yeah, so you find us on the internet at www.academyoflifeplanning.com. So that's academyoflifeplanning.com. There is a shortened version, which is aolp.co.uk. That's aolp.co.uk. Yeah, that's a short version, but everything you need is there. Contact details of the Academy for planners and for direct customers as well.
Okay, all those links I'll put in the show notes, so people will be able to find you easily on there. So, Steve, thank you for your time. I've really enjoyed it, and I'm sure that the listeners will also enjoy your story, which I found fascinating. I think the Academy of Life Planners or Planning is going to go from strength to strength. And so thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony.
All right, catch up soon.
Great. Yeah, catch you soon.
All right, take care. Bye.